Hello, everyone. This is Plague Warrior, and I hope everybody's having a great weekend. And I thought we'd just have like a little fireside chat and just talk about everything that's either happened through the week or things that we're currently interested in. So, our first topic is unfortunately Alan Moore. Alan Moore's poked his little head up again, making stupid comments about superheroes and how they're like Nazis, blah, blah, blah. You know, Alan Moore's work and Alan Moore himself is so pretentious. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I don't have any of his books. I certainly do. And some of them are a great read, and there are others that not. Some of it's a little blown out of proportion. I know people like to think he's the greatest comic book writer of all time, but I really don't think so. Go back and think about Alan's Moore work for a minute, and he's gotten some good books out there, like For the Man Who Has Everything, Superman, Swamp Thing's all right. I read through. I've only got volume. Ironically, I've only got volume 2. I really want to get volume 1. I'm not gonna lie and say I wouldn't buy more of his stuff. I would like volume 1. I think I bought volume 2 because it had the reference to Dante's Inferno, and I was super interested in that because I'm interested in Dante's Inferno, so that's why I bought volume 2 instead of volume 1 first. And maybe even wanted to get Alan it's not Omnibus, but the other one, I think the Absolute Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. That would be an interesting read if it's got enough of the stories in there. And even thinking back about his that one Superman story, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, it's a good story to a degree. The artwork is amazing. I really like the artwork. One of the last by Kurt Swan. And when you think about the story, though, it's been a while since I've read it, so I can't remember every exact detail. I know Superman's last stand, he gets found out Clark Kent is Superman, holds up in the Fortress of Solitude, yada, yada, yada. The thing that, maybe I need to go back and reread it, but the thing that kind of bugs me sitting here thinking back about what I do remember from the story is people like, I think it was like Pete Ross, Supergirl, Crypto, getting killed out there. Like, literally, they're dying. And then Superman's holed up in the fortress not doing anything. And this is why I don't know about putting it in like in the top spot. Top 5 maybe of Superman stories. But do you think it was Superman written by, I don't want to say anybody else, but most people, do you think the real Superman, with what we know about like his character and stuff, if his friends are out there dying, will he sit there and be like, oh, woe is me, my villains have come, my friends are out there battling these villains and they're dying, I'm just going to sit here and doom and gloom? He'd be out there risking his life, even if it meant his death. And then what happens at the, spoiler alert, then what happens at the very end? He kills one of the villains and decides to take away he strips his powers and doesn't kill himself. He strips his powers. Doesn't even do it, doesn't leave to be Superman anyway. It's just kind of crazy that he would sit there and let his friends die. And then I understand that he's killed somebody, but also how many people are there left to protect Metropolis if something does happen? I think for the most part it's a cool story, but I think we've overblown it some. I more prefer Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman, I could put in my top 3, depending on the week or what I'm reading. It could even be in the number 1 spot. Because I think that's a great Superman story, and to me, it makes a lot more sense and flows a lot better with the character. But, Alan Moore's like, oh, it leads to Nazism, blah, blah, blah. To get back on track, and they always act as if, an individual who takes a big stance for justice and wants to fight against crime for the established order is a Nazi. That's what drives me nuts. It's more about like, well, you've got to, go get a group protest and culturally cancel them if you don't want to be a Nazi, if that's how you want to protect, and let thieving happen. Because those, like that one Batman comic where they're out there looting those businesses, and he says, well, they've got insurance. That's the right way to go. That's how you're not a Nazi. And it's just a bunch of crap. Alan Moore's still whining and crying because he hasn't been paid. He doesn't think he's been paid enough for his DC work. I guarantee you, if tomorrow DC says, hey, we'll pay you off for all that back pay for Watchmen and everything, if you say you love comics again, he'd be out there expressing his love for comics. I guarantee it. And he says he hasn't written. I mean, has the man even written anything lately? I remember it was years ago, I read something where he was writing this huge novel. I want to say trying to compete with Stephen King or something. It was like over 2,000 pages. I don't recall what it was about. It was like some super long, weird novel. And I'm like, even if some of his later work, you can tell that he was going out there. Nobody's really interested in him anymore. And so he wants to pipe up every now and then to talk about comics, because that's when he was super famous, to try to get some notoriety back. Anyway, enough about Alan Moore. Keeping on comics, lately I've been reading Fantastic Four by John Byrne. It's a good read. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm on volume 1. I don't have volume 2. I should have bought volume 2. It's the omnibus. And I'm really enjoying it. You get to see some stuff I didn't know, like the Inhumans getting sent to the moon in order to stay alive. That was an interesting concept. Human Torch kind of teaching a protege / girlfriend how to be a Human Torch, because she's got fire powers now too. So that was some good stuff. I enjoy it, and I'm making my way through it. It takes me a while to read these omnibuses, but I've got Peter David's Hulk in the wing, volumes 1 and 2 on that one, and so I'm looking forward to that. Going on to the comic book movies, I recently found out that a guy on the internet has taken Batman 1989 and made it into a silent film. He's taken away all the sound except for the soundtrack, and ironically enough, the soundtrack, which includes 2 songs, one with Prince in it, of actual singing with words, is in there, where they wouldn't have that back in the day because they didn't know how to put the words. That's why it was a silent movie. But it was kind of funny. And he's also tinted the scenes, and instead of it just being black and white, it's like blue, or there's some purple. The purple's a good one because it's usually in reference to the Joker, which I like that. Or it's like a tan or an orange type of tint. And it just when you watch it, it just goes to show you how well Tim Burton directed that movie, because you can still see everything that's going on, understand the entire story, and enjoy it. If you were to take a modern movie, even the modern day Batman movie, The Batman, and turn it into a silent film, I might have to take a look at. It might be hard because it's so dialogue heavy. It would be hard to figure out what's going on, I bet. Or like getting some stuff that's implied. When I remember watching The Batman, and they were talking about, oh, you've been cooped up in here in this house for so long, nobody knows who you are. And then when he goes to that guy's funeral, they say, oh, it's the Prince of Gotham. We don't ever get to see him that often, and some people hardly know who he is and stuff, and it takes them a moment to recognize him. Like, oh, you're Bruce Wayne. I didn't recognize you because they don't see you that much. It's a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue. Whereas if you watch Batman 89, it's very clever in that, and a lot of people don't realize this. Like, I remember watching Kevin Smith watch this movie, and he didn't understand this concept. But it's Kevin Smith, what do you expect? In that, when they had Harvey Dent doing his first speech about like the crime and corruption in Gotham City, and there's an empty seat there, and most people are just watching Harvey Dent make his speech. But if you look down at the place card to the empty seat, it's Bruce Wayne. It's nobody, he's not there. And then the funny thing, in the silent film, they actually zoom in on that when they try to do a cutaway. They have like this tunnel vision type thing where it zooms in onto the empty seat in the place card, and then it goes to the next scene. And in the party, Vicky Vale doesn't know who he is. So it just goes to show you how much of a recluse he is, that people don't even know who he is at his own party. And that's just how much of a filmmaker. He doesn't have to take a bunch of dialogue and say this fact. He shows us visually, which is what you want in a movie. You don't want a dialogue heavy movie. You want a visual movie. It takes a lot more brain power nowadays to do that visually. Nowadays, everybody wants to do it through dialogue, so we don't have to think. Anyways, take a look at that movie. Very fun watch. Fun visually to watch. Shows you how much of a good filmmaker Tim Burton is. And apparently the guy's going to do Batman Returns, my favorite Batman movie. So, looking forward to that. I really can't wait to watch that and see if it's as good, if not better than the first one. Next is, I was talking to my wife and also one of my coworkers, and because I had been watching like some Godzilla movies, and I know somebody's going to steal this idea. Now that I say it, somebody's going to steal it, get famous off of it, and it's going to make me mad because I'm the one that said it here first. Is, why doesn't somebody, I know why, and I'll explain in a minute. Why doesn't somebody make a monster movie with suitmation like they do back in the day and put it on YouTube? Some of it's toys. They use like the toy stop motion, or not even stop motion. They just use the toys and do a movie. I think it would be super cool, and you would get that old school look to it, and you build models just like they would do back in the day. What I would do is probably just like make kind of like a movie trailer first, where you build one suit, you build a model of a couple of things, like one or two things, stomp through there, blow it up, show some other stuff with human beings, and maybe somebody has and I just don't know about. Please tell me. I mostly watch Godzilla stuff, and I tried to look that up. I couldn't find anything, but maybe one of y'all out there knows about one of them. So if you do, tell me. I would like to watch it, even if it's not Godzilla. But just go through and make like a trailer and say, if it looks really cool, and put it out there and just say, hey, give me, if y'all can loan me or send me some money via something so that I can do an entire movie on this, be happy to do it. And I think it would do really well. I think the Godzilla fans and the other fans of kaiju and stuff, seeing like old school type suitmation, going and making a movie like that again, I think it would be neat. If somebody has as long as somebody has a good idea and an interesting concept to put towards it, I think it would do well. The reason why I know somebody doesn't do that is because how much money it would cost. In that, to build the suit itself, I'm no cosplayer, but to build a suit like that probably costs a couple of $1,000. I would say probably like 2 to 4, maybe 5. I'm not sure. I could be completely wrong. But I think it would cost a lot of money. Now, and the money to cost for the models, model cities. If you're gonna stomp through a city, that would cost a lot of money to make it look realistic. Buy like cars that look good. Maybe you could buy like die-cast cars that, you know, are built to look exactly the same as the real cars. And the buildings too. That would cost a lot. You'd have to have a space to film it in, which would either be somebody's home, like a garage, or a storage unit. But the only thing is, if you want to blow stuff up like they would in the movies, you'd probably have to use the storage unit. Well, I don't think the storage unit would probably let you due to liability and insurance. You'd probably have to find some space, like buy out a warehouse, like lease a warehouse, and shoot it there without anybody knowing, so you wouldn't have to get insurance or get the insurance, and film it like that. So lots of money, and that's why somebody probably hasn't done it yet. But there's going to be somebody out there who's going to have the same idea now that I've put this out in the world. Is going to shoot that movie and then make, you know, a bunch of money off of it. It's going to become famous. It's going to piss me off. But yeah, so the reason I mentioned that is because I'm working on actually a kaiju comic. I don't want to put too much of it out there because you never know nowadays. Somebody hears it. It's going to take me a long time to get it through with it. So somebody hears it here, and they're like, oh, I'll do it first. But I think it'll be cool to do a kaiju comic just because there's so many superhero comics out there. And doing a kaiju comic might be something that's so just enough different that people will be interested in it. I'm hoping. But thanks for listening. Hope y'all enjoyed this chat, and have a great weekend.